narrow, he is filled with many twists and turns. So how do we keep from losing heart while trying to find the good way when life feels more like a losing battle than something worth dying for? Grab your gear and come on a quest with your band of brothers who will serve as the guides in what we call the masculine journey. The masculine journey starts here now.
Welcome to the Masculine Journey. We're glad to have you with us today, and we are coming back fresh off of boot camp, which is always going to be a tiring but fruitful, and I don't even know how to describe it. Yeah, more tiring. Yeah. That's a pretty good description of what that feels like. It's just a tiring week, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't know about you guys. It's such a great experience with God, and we had so many breakthroughs just on the team, not on the team, just everybody at camp. And it was an amazing camp. You know, it seems like whenever we have a smaller camp, it's a lot more intimate.
Yeah.
You know, and people really get to know each other more and get to share and talk. And that's really what I thought we saw this weekend. Robbie, what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah, it was really fun because it was in Georgia. A lot wilder experience, really a little bit more out in the outback, so to speak, where we didn't have quite the connection. But we had a big hill to walk up. It was over by the Band of Brothers. We got to see where the Band of Brothers was filmed, which actually, Andy, you can describe that more than I can.
Yeah, I mean, I got to looking when we were first talking about going down there, and I was like, I think Currahee is near the camp we're at. So yeah, we went and saw it. We went up to the top of the mountain that they actually ran, and it was a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, for those of you who've not seen the Band of Brothers, I wasn't that aware of it.
Yeah.
I'd seen it, but forgotten about this particular scene where the captain kept making them run this hill, which is actually more of a mountain when you actually go to do it. And he told this one guy, you're supposed to do this in 15 minutes, which it's 3 miles up and 3 miles back. So, you do the math on that. Right. Even 4-minute miles, you couldn't do it. And they were doing it in full gear with rifles and all that stuff. But this is real life. I mean, they were training for the invasion that would later happen in Normandy. And when we drove this thing, hill is not a word for it. No, mountain is the word for it.
Exactly.
And so we got up to about maybe 400 yards from the top. And I said, well, I'm going to run this thing. Yeah, you run that last 400 yards of that steep, and you realize that, man, when he was teaching them to be a band of brothers, and one of my favorite scenes of that actually was where he told one guy to go run it, and then you see 3 of the brothers come alongside him to run it, so essentially he didn't have to do it alone.
Yep. And that guy was really difficult. He ended up getting sacked. He was taken out because he didn't lead men well, but he prepared men well. And that is why they had the strength and the fortitude to do what they did. They were the only unit, I believe, that went from D-Day all the way up to whatever it is.
The Eagle's Nest.
Eagle's Nest, Hitler's Lair, whatever. They went all the way into Austria. And very strong unit that and that's where you get the term Band of Brothers. Yep.
Yeah, it was I've watched it a few times now, and ever since we went down there, Andy, to Camp Toka.
Yeah, Toccoa,
and the mountains Currahee.
Right.
And so not only is it where they filmed it, it's actually where it happened.
Yeah.
Right. They filmed it on location where these guys actually trained. Now the camp's no longer there, but enough of the camp's there that you can kind of go visit.
Yeah, they've got the barracks still there, and they've got a C-47 out front that you can actually see.
If you go on the weekend, we've gone twice during the week, so we could just look at it through the fence. We enjoyed it. We weren't alert when we were there the first time to realize, oh yeah, this is for Thursday. We can't really get in, but definitely worth it, and definitely it was impactful.
And we use the term Band of Brothers constantly. And I showed a clip, on the wounding about how these guys knew their wounds, and that's kind of what we talk about is doing of learning each other's wounds, so you can help each other heal. I mean, you can help heal each other, and through God, of course. But that whole thing of just what a Band of Brothers is, that series really does make it true, because we talk about battle quite a bit. They were in battle constantly, but they loved each other. They stayed connected after the war and stuff. So anyway.
Yeah, a lot of them did. But we're going to be talking about boot camp. We're going to be talking about this last boot camp during this show and the after hours. We're also going to be talking about boot camps in general because we have a couple of guests with us. And we're going to be talking about an event coming up this weekend. But unfortunately, we do record this on Tuesday. So by the time the radio listeners are hearing it, they're not, it's going to be too late because it'll come on at noon and the event will be over. And so, but if you're on Facebook or what else we do it on? YouTube, watching it live, then you'll still have time. So Garrett, welcome to the show and tell us a little bit about the event this weekend.
Thanks for having me, guys. Finding out that it won't go until this Saturday is what my church would call that a classic Garrett. So perfect scheduling on my part again. We're doing a marriage weekend. It's a half-day seminar at our church at Foothills Christian Church. And my parents, they were also pastors. My dad just retired after 40 years of ministry, and they're coming up to do their marriage talk. And so, guys out there, if you are married, your wife, it will mean the world to your wife if you initiate this and say, hey, you know what? I got this for us. So let's go do it. It's $20 a couple. It's super inexpensive, and there's still time to sign up. So this Saturday, doors open at 8:30 in the morning. There's going to be snacks. There's going to be lunch and Q&A and all sorts of stuff. So it's going to be great. Bring your spouses and invest in your marriage. It's never too early or too late to start investing in your marriage. So I hope you do.
Yep.
FoothillsChristianChurch.com. Right on the homepage, you'll find it. And I'm going to share it on our Facebook page as well. You can get a link that way as well.
Yeah, we will share it on our Facebook page, assuming I remember when I leave here. So I have to make a note in my phone, so I'll do that during the break. But Garrett, you're also a former alumni of boot camp.
I am, yes.
Yeah, so you want to tell us a little bit about some of your favorite boot camp memories?
Yeah, so I'm the odd man out. I did not go with this batch here, but I have been to it. And I will say this, I encourage you to do it if you have an opportunity. They come up every so often. So please make time for yourself to go to one of these. I was asked to give a talk on being fathered by God. And anyone who's ever taught before, if you have to teach something, it kind of registers with you in a different way than before, right? And so I had to start thinking about, okay, what's it like having God as my father? And it reminded me of this interaction I had with my dad when I was in high school. And I was sitting in the car with my dad, and I had a really hard relationship with my dad, as a lot of high schoolers have with their dads. And I will say this, if you've got a strained relationship with a teenager, parents out there, please don't give up, all right? There's something coming around the corner. You just don't give up on that relationship. And one day I finally just got to a point where I told my dad, I said, I think you would be happier if I was my brother. And thinking back about that, I can't imagine how much that hurt my dad to hear that. But my dad just kind of stopped. I remember the stoplight we were at. I can see everything perfectly right now. He goes, Garrett, I don't want you to be anybody else other than you. I love you. Like you're the child I want. And now that I'm a dad, I have 4 kids, and I think about my relationship with my kids. I have this register in my mind where I go, oh, I now know how off base my thought process was as a child. Because as a dad, it has never even occurred to me to think, I wish my child was some other person. I just want my child. I just want my kids. That's all I want. And when I think about God, and it's really easy for me as a pastor, as a Christian, to be like, I'm sure God's really proud of these other Christians out there. I'm sure He's really proud of these other guys who are really, hitting the ball in the park, and I'm over here like some loser. And He's going, "Oh, Garrett, you're the guy I want. You're the Garrett I'm looking for. I'm not looking for any other Garretts." And so that was my big takeaway from my boot camp, and I loved it. I appreciated it.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Now, you guys may have a boot camp this fall as well, right?
Darren is getting all amped up to put one out, and that date is not yet set, but in the fall he's wanting to put one out as well. So some options are coming up.
Yeah, we just asked him not to choose the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Why, Sam?
Why? Because that's when our next boot camp is.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't go register for it quite yet, but you will be able to soon, and we'll tell you about it. But we know the weekend before Thanksgiving.
I think I can miss that one. I think I can just be off of it a little bit. So
yeah, well, that's true. You could just pick a week or two ahead of that, and so that'd still be good, And so our only challenge with that time of year is anybody that likes to hunt. It's hard to get them there because it's usually in the middle or beginning part of deer season, and so it makes it a little bit of a challenge sometimes. But that is our weekend pretty much every year, and so we haven't finalized the location for sure yet. But once we do, we'll be putting up the link. And so just go ahead and bookmark it so you know when it is, the weekend before Thanksgiving. If you don't know when that is, just look at a calendar and look for Thanksgiving and go to the weekend right before that. And so that's exactly what we do when we're trying to figure that out. But thank you, Garrett, for sharing that. Danny, I wanted to ask you a little bit. You weren't able to make this boot camp, and you just had some lame excuse, but we won't even need to go into that. But if you want to tell us about like some of your favorite boot camp experiences.
Yeah, minor appendix surgery doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything to you guys, apparently.
No, we wouldn't cut you any slack for that.
Oh, no, but, I hate I missed this boot camp because, new location and that kind of thing. But, one of the things that's always cool about boot camp is you never come out the same way.
No.
And, that's ultimately a good thing in that, there's been so many times, and I don't even know how to narrow one down because I got so much going on in this brain right now. As my wife says, there's too many tabs that are open.
Yeah.
And that.
Too much memory being used.
Yeah, I think I'm out of RAM. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah.
We're
We're probably using the wrong terms because Andy's sitting over there.
Yeah,
probably
Andy's
correcting
going,
us.
oh, God, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But, you guys have already talked about, being a part of a band of brothers and hanging out with you guys is awesome.
It is.
That's all I got to say about that.
Well, that's enough. We appreciate it. Anyway, we're glad you're here, Danny. It's really good to see you, and we're glad that you're with us. I can't say enough about Camp Little Light, which is where we went down in Georgia. It's such an amazing place. You pull up and you think that you're pulled up to this ghost town, right? It looks like a facade that you would see out west, because you got the Freedom Barn over here, and then in the middle you got the Chuck Wagon, and then you got the bunkhouse. And you're like, are these even real buildings? Am I going to open it up and step on the backside of that building? It's just like a front, and they're rugged. They're very men-like. It's, you could almost grunt as you pull up there, right? Like the old Tim Allen show on.
My name is Grant.
Yeah, so you feel like going, that kind of thing, right? And then you go in, and it's so nice. You couldn't ask for much more, and we had so much fun. We were down there. Not everybody participated in everything, but that's what's good about it. You don't have to participate in everything. And so we were able to do, zip lining and some skeet shooting and some team building events along with the sessions. It was just an amazing weekend. And like I said, we just let people participate where they wanted to participate, but it was amazing. We'll be back to talk to you after the break, but we've got so much more, and we got clips coming up and more about this boot camp. We'll talk to you when we come back.
This is obviously working, but it says off instead of on.
Fine are not transferable, redeemable for cash, or exchangeable
What?
for any other prize. All prizes.
No, you
must
turn off
be
the
returned
mics.
to the station
I know I did.
within 30 days of
He was talking.
Only one prize per household. One station for true broadcasting within any 30-day period.
It's off now.
It's off now. You can talk all
You can talk.
want.
It's off.
You can talk
Oh,
with volume.
it was already set off here. Is this?
Ours says
I turned it off
also.
here.
It's your microphone. That has to do with
Ours
your
says off
headphones.
also.
Don't worry about it.
But when y'all have been on,
There's a
ours was set off the whole time.
I can hear you.
Mine's been off the whole time.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, yours is set off.
Don't worry about it. It has to do
Right.
with. It has to do.
I'm
with
turning the microphones back on, so don't talk.
Don't worry about it.
It's a little warm over here.
Welcome back to Masculine Journey. And Andy, I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about that particular bomb, because that's from boot camp, correct?
It is. It is. And I was, We the Church, I think is the name.
That's why I had you do it, because I couldn't remember
Yeah, I know.
who it was.
But that song about two boot camps, that just kept coming up in my spirit. I would hear it, and it would come up in my spirit. And I just thought it was just a worship song that gets people to enter in, and that's true. But I got to thinking about it a little bit more after boot camp, is that, we talk about you've got to remove the poser and you've got to heal the wound. Those things you have to make room for God to do those things.
Yeah.
And it opens it up for all the other stuff to come, all the good stuff through restoration and healing, of finding out what your calling is, of stepping into sonship, of getting your identity. But you have to make room. And a lot of times all the junk from the past is filling up the room.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And part of the process of the weekend is there's talks that help you get things out of the way,
Yep.
So that you can work on some of that stuff. And the talks don't do anything. Honestly, the talks are topics, and then God does all the work.
Right.
But, it puts you in a place mentally, spiritually, emotionally, a lot of times where God can work.
Yeah. Truth opens you up to those things. The truth does need to be
I
spoken.
heard it'll set you free.
I've heard that too. A really smart guy said that one time too, didn't
He did. That was Eliza Smith,
right.
and her church. I couldn't get that
Yeah,
far. I
right.
couldn't read that far in my little note. So that's who was the lead singer in it. But on to our first clip of the show. And Robbie, you have the first clip, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, well, so we have, for many that have seen Vacation, the movie, it's iconic, this particular scene where Clark Griswold is trying to take his family on vacation, and they want to turn around and go back because there's a little problem with the grandma dying and, rain, the car crashing on numerous occasions, all sorts of things that have led them to this. And of course, at this point in time, he becomes frustrated, not unlike my father would have, or many fathers probably that you experienced. And he gets to the point where he's going to have fun no matter what, at whatever cost. He's screaming at them, that this is going to be about fun. And if you want to go ahead and play that clip, then I can tell you how I relate to that. There are two things. I don't know how many times I've seen the movie, heard that clip, and I picked up some things at the end of it that are significant when it comes to this particular boot camp. And number one, that his son, didn't seem to be too affected by his dad's rant, and so it's like, you need some aspirin, Dad. I mean, think how kind that really is. Like, I'm not going to be affected by your shenanigans. I'm just going to offer you some aspirin. And then he admits he's under attack. And I never heard that before, but clearly he was under attack. And, I've often thought the 16th Psalm, it says, in his presence is fullness of joy. At his right hand are pleasures forevermore. In other words, when you're running, walking with Jesus, however you're doing that, it's fun, man. It's a blast. In his presence, it's right there. And so when that ceases to be like that in your life, it's like a check engine light going off saying, that's time to check under the hood. Maybe I'm not walking with God right this minute. Well, at boot camp, we often talk about how God will dismantle you, disrupt you, and in an effort actually to remove a pose is what we talk about. If you want to get rid of the poser, you need to get disrupted, something to see it, because you don't even know you got the pose. Well, one of the poses that I have, honestly, is that same pose that you just heard from Clark Griswold. He didn't mean anything by it, but he was just angry, and he was speaking angrily. In other words, he was clearly not walking with God in that particular scene. And, we were doing this Teams course thing, and this guy, from my perspective, got out of line, and I decided I was on a quest for fun. He was going to have fun whether he liked it or not, and unfortunately, it upset the poor guy, and I triggered him to where he was wanting to leave the camp. I mean, honestly, and that was on me. And it just totally disrupted me. I mean, and next thing I know, I'm sitting in a meeting with Sam, and Jim Graham, and we're doing our best to try to apologize and say, man, don't, you know. And fortunately, he had the grace to hang out and to stay with us and somewhat resolve that. But you know, the next morning in my continued quest for fun at breakfast, you know, I felt myself being snippy again towards the people that were trying to help me cook breakfast. And so when I got home, and I got alone with God Monday morning, I was like, help me, God. I know I have this and I don't have any control over it. It's like, I want to walk with you. I want to be with you. I don't want to lose my temper. I want to be something other than I am, and I really don't know how to do that. And God just, you know, in his loving way, faithful are the wounds of a friend, and nobody loves you more than God. He says, Robbie, you don't trust me. And oh man, I guess that is it. And so I need to work on that. And so, you know, like a lot of people, I immediately thought of Proverbs 3:5, where, you know, lean on the Lord with all your heart. And I mean, trust in the Lord with all your heart. There's the word, trust. And lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, right? And he's going to make your path straight, which apparently I'd gotten crooked here. And I started to ask, you know, what was behind that. And as I studied that word trust, I saw two words over in Hebrew was the word to talk angrily. So I thought, well, isn't that fascinating that here we have trust, and then right after that, talk angrily. What's the difference between the two words? It's actually right before. And what I saw was that to talk angrily ended in the letter Aleph, which that letter has to do with the Father. You hear it in but it sounds like an A, right? And it has to do with who's in charge. Alpha, meaning the alpha male, right? And so who's in charge in the situation of talking angrily? That would be Robbie. If you look at the word trust, however, the last letter, same first two letters, different last letter in the word trust is a letter het. And that letter het has everything to do with the union. In fact, it looks like a marriage canopy because it is a marriage. And it's a marriage between you and God. And so when you're in that marriage and you truly do trust, and if you think about a marriage, it's based on faith, right? How do you please God? Through faith. And so clearly, this isn't something you're going to fix overnight, but it was an opportunity for me to push into, you know, my own weakness and my own, you know, because it's bad enough I talk bad to my friends or to people at a boot camp, but what about my own family? What about my wife? What about my kids? You know, and to realize, you know, number one, I got to own this thing. I got to push into it. I got to repent, but I'm going to have to really do some work to get where I know God wants me to be. But, you know, how cool is it that really we're all in that place? We're asking for God to come for us. And sometimes it isn't so pleasant, like this one wasn't, but, you know, there we are.
Yeah, I remember when you were talking and doing it and saying those things at the camp that I don't ever remember you being mad at anybody, because I was standing there cooking, Andy was next to me cooking, and you were running around trying to make sure we're all cooking and getting other stuff done. And I don't even remember you, because you're describing these things. And it's like, I don't remember that, but I'm sure you knew where your heart was at. You knew that, dang it, I'm mad about this. And he probably thought I'm worse than what I even sound. But I don't know, Andy, if you noticed it, but I was just like, well, he was helping us all the time because we all needed it.
He was. And I know about myself, I'm kind of a flunky in the kitchen, and there was a process and stuff, and he guided me through it. And I just didn't see it. There was an incredible amount on a lot of us. But on Robbie especially, was having to really manage the kitchen and do talks and whatnot. And I really didn't think anything about it. In fact, I've been told that I'm like a madman when it comes to like.
Yeah, that's the clip we really need, Sam, is that like when he goes to cooking French toast, it's like Lee Harvey, you're a wild guy. How's it go exactly? So that actually is probably my favorite memory from, as far as pleasant memory is, that's in the movie Stripes, and we'd use that clip. But when Andy was cooking out this French toast like you've never seen in your life, he was flipping it. It was coming. I was
Very
like,
good.
Lee Harvey, you're an animal, because who would name their kid Lee Harvey?
This is all in the same time frame when he was saying he was getting upset. So we had some fun in all that. So it wasn't. He and Rodney were sitting there like, man, you are there. And then I was like, because we had played the clip in one of the sessions, in the poser session. There they are. And it just kind of stuck. They just kept going on about, man. It's like, I got the names right. I said Harvey Lee, and it was like Robbie, and he knows every movie or whatever. He instantly knew what I was talking about. So it made it fun. But really, there was a lot on Robbie, and we all do things when we get under pressure. I think I really appreciate how he's leaned into how he wants God to walk him through this. But I think Rodney would say the same thing, that we don't see that there's anything there much from our side, but I will let God do whatever he wants to do with Robbie.
Well, we'll be talking about the rest of boot camp when we get to the after hours. And so if you're listening to us on the radio show and you said, what is this after hours? Go to any podcast location. You just name it. If it's a podcast, we're on it. Look up Masculine Journey Radio and you can listen to the rest of the talk. And you can also go to masculinejourney.org to see anything we have coming up, but we don't have anything coming up right now, so don't go today. But that's where you would go. Or if you want to reach out to any of us, go to through email, our first name at masculinejourney.org. Talk to you next week.
You could mention again after hours because it's going out now anyway.
Yeah.
In fact, you can mention it right now all you want to, because it's still going out live right this second, even though the radio show's
masculinejourney.org.
No, I'm talking about
this
the marriage retreat. So
Marriage weekend.
the marriage weekend. So the way it was described to me is they have covenant of silence and that kind of thing in this marriage weekend.
No, we don't do the covenant silence. It's just gonna be 3 sessions, three talks on.
What are the talks about?
One is celebrating the difference between men and women, and one is the last one is going to be called marital casualty insurance, and start with the end in mind will be the first one. So
What was
start with the end in mind. So what's the marriage you're aiming for, and how can you start with working towards that?
That's good. And I can just say from all sorts of experience that marriage stuff like that, it does mean a ton to your wife.
Yeah.
And it breathes a little hope, because I think everybody, from what I hear,
know very well.
I remember honestly that when I was in Sunday school at church at Calvary, everybody would say,
I won't do it on the air. It's too private for him.
Yeah.
everybody would say that, oh, this marriage, they've got it together. And my wife would say, you see how they are together? You see how much they love each other? You see, they would never have a divorce. Well, if you ride the train long enough, they got divorced, they got divorced. And all those people she thought had their act together, got divorced. But every time that you go to a marriage retreat, you get a little closer. You get a little closer to God. You get a little closer to each other. She sees you're making an effort, whatever. And it just breathes a little bit of hope, because that hope will give you the next 6 months or 4 months or 3 months. And the next thing you know, you've been married 38 years. Seriously.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, am I so glad we made it. Because we can share things.
Mm-hmm.
When we go, like we went to Spain a few weeks ago, and we can relate to all the things we did with the kids, because it's just worth it, in my opinion. And I never would have guessed that we would be the ones of all the, because it was, me with my anger, and all that went on with that. It blows me away.
Yeah.
But I am so thrilled. But I know that we probably we committed to doing at least one marriage retreat a year.
Oh, really? Nice.
And our biggest breakthrough retreat was the one Darren and Sam put on.
Oh, yeah?
And so these guys know I struggled with pornography and masturbation, all these kind of things. And right after I got healing on that, the 2 weeks after God came for me, gave me my innocence card, we have this marriage retreat. And they do a couples covenant of silence.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was Sam actually said, what we want you to do is we want you to go out there and tell your spouse something you've never been able to tell her before or him. I'm like, right, here it comes. And as I've said many times, for the first time in my wife loved me.
Wow.
I mean, it was horrible. I had to break her heart and go through all that stuff. It was unbelievably painful for her. And believe me, I hate that it all happened. But at the end of the day, she got me up off the pedestal. She wasn't married. She was married to the person she thought she was married to. And, the mask was no longer receiving all the love. It was, the real Robbie. So marriage retreat coming up this Sunday.
This Saturday.
This Saturday.
Yep.
At Foothills Church.
Yep.
Help.
We'll do a different one for you.
Foothills
Conference.
Foothills.com.
Foothillschristianchurch.com.
Foothillschristianchurch.com.
Yep.
So that's good. We've got about 5 minutes till we get back on. Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
You gotta get James and Dave on.
Does it tell me on here? Yeah, I'm gonna have them go first.
Does it tell you on here?
Does it tell me how much longer till we go on?
Well, we go on at 47.
Right.
That's saying
It'll be easier for me to-
1942-16. So that
Oh, yeah.
clock is actually right
That
up
way
there.
it has
Okay.
Rich. There he goes. Yeah. Hey, we'll just swing it.
No, he can get it from there. And then Andy, you do the first clip,
Okay.
and then I'll do the last clip.
Overexertion on the back.
What that is, for those of you who are wondering, is that's stations across the entire Truth Network. There's our station, Ohio, and Salt Lake City, and all those. Each one of those have different call letters, and you see little signals coming across. Well, one of those stations goes pink. That station's off the air.
Oh, okay.
So if it starts with a K, it's west of the Mississippi, right?
Right,
And
Right,
a W, it's east of the Mississippi.
right. So KUTR is the right. And then when you see those that have the truth, those are our Truth Network stations, and some are the light, and those are our Black Gospel stations. And WFJS is our sports radio station that's here. And then over there that says La Verdad, those are all Spanish stations.
So are those all coming from here, or is this the local version of that? So this is all coming from this. That's cool.
Right, all that big brain out there is
Is broadcasting.
taking content from all sorts of different sources at any given moment in time, from satellites, from internet feed, from
So what's the cross?
the cross is a Southern Gospel format, and we have that at the beach, and we've got it east of Raleigh a little bit. I can't think of what the city is in. Maybe Lincoln. No, Lincolnton is where one is by the beach.
Yeah, you can clean those.
Lizard Lick.
That sounds like a place to live, man.
They got good barbecue there. Lizard Lake.
Yeah.
They
They
do.
would have to.
Yeah.
It'd be
Sounds like a
required.
restaurant, actually.
You just don't want to go back on your payment. You don't want to be not up to date on your car payments when you are hanging around Lizard Lick, because they'll come get you. I wish I could have heard all those, Lee Harvey. You're an animal.
Oh, yeah.
So this show is recorded and then put out as broadcast on Saturday, right?
Right.
Is all your stuff done out, or is any of it going out live?
His is live on
Yours
Saturday.
is live. Okay.
Yeah, we did a live show today at 5, which is True Talk Live. And
Okay.
then I do Christian Car Guys live on Saturday and King Pursuits live.
Okay. So is Truth Talk Live, is that is it a weekday thing, or do you do
Every day at 4, yeah.
every day for it? Okay.
Doesn't do it on the Saturday or Sunday. It's just Monday through Friday.
Okay, what do you cover on that? What's the
Topics?
Current events,
Oh, okay.
but also a lot of testimony stuff and ministries. You know, like today I had a guy who is running the marathon in Jerusalem
Oh,
here in a month, and he runs for Jesus. Guy done 100-mile run, 24 hours he ran.
That's cool.
I can't even drive 24 hours, let alone run 24 hours.
so that's your
You're gonna be
show where you can talk about these
Yeah,
guys
keep
while they're not in the
going.
room, right? Just talk about them behind the back.
All the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we shut that.
That's a lot of running.
We got about a minute, but
No, it's actually there. It's pretty much.
I don't always host that show, but I do quite a bit.
I'll start with I'll start with Garrett again, just to talk about the weekend.
Sit here and talk.
Foothills.
You're good. You got another over here, 30 seconds away, man.
I'll give you an update David sent me after the show. Yeah, I just don't want to talk
Okay.
so far.
30 seconds.
Yeah, about 30 seconds will be coming in.
Praise God.
Hey, don't forget we have live mics on, so I'll give you a set. You know, we got about 20 more seconds, so we gotta be quiet.
We don't got it.
No, we don't. We gotta be quiet now, I guess. Welcome to Masculine Journey After Hours. We're glad that you're with us this week. What you're hearing is tired, full of excitement, and tired. That would pretty much explain how I feel after our weekend in Georgia. Man, I wouldn't have done it any differently than we did, except for maybe Charlotte traffic. But you can't get away from that even if you try. But it was such an amazing weekend. But you do come back pretty spent, just. But it's hard to explain. It's so worth it that we do it as many times as we can. Just because what God does on those weekends and how He restores pieces of our heart or shows us more about our purpose in life is, or what He's got planned for us this next season. All those things that He continually does. And I know that we've done something around 30 boot camps. I don't know what the number is over the years. Total, I've been to probably at least 40. Every one of those, God has done something for me. Every single one, and honestly, I know me. Had I not gone, it would have been a lot harder for Him to do that for me because I just keep my mind and I keep my body so busy all the time, or I'm asleep. That's usually what's going on. I don't have, it's on and off. There's not a lot of just pause and rest and coast. And when I go to camp, that makes me have to do that. And it's really, really good for my heart. And you think I would learn after that many times I need to do it in between camp. And I do a little bit, but not nearly like I should. Anyway, we are talking about last boot camp, and we're also talking about an upcoming retreat the seminar this weekend. Garrett, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we at Foothills Christian Church are putting on a half-day seminar, bringing in Cam and Sarah Huxford from Savannah, Georgia. Cam just retired for 40 years of ministry, and so he's bringing all that wisdom up here. And they're going to just give us 3 talks on marriage. They're going to be starting with the end in mind. What kind of marriage do you want? Aim for that, and how you start living for that now. And the differences between men and women. Everyone always loves those talks. And so there's also going to be a chance for a Q&A for you to get your questions answered if there's something specific you're looking for. And so this Saturday, March 22nd, from 9 o'clock to about 12:30. Doors open at 8:30. There's going to be coffee and donuts for you. And come on out. It's going to be great. And look us up at foothillschristianchurch.com, and right on the homepage you'll find our plan our marriage weekend.
Yeah, and we'll put a link on the Masculine Journey Facebook page so that you guys can get to that.
Yeah, so there's still more tickets going out. It's going to be we'd love to have you. I'd love to meet you.
Thanks, Garrett. So over to the guys, some of the guys that came with us to boot camp, and which one would like to go first? David? Well, I guess James is pointing at you, David. He was quicker than you, so it's we'll go with James. No, I'm just kidding. I would love to do that to him, but I won't. Next time you're here, that's what's going to happen. But David, this is your second boot camp?
Yes.
Yeah, so tell us about this boot camp for you.
This boot camp I didn't really know what I was searching for or looking for because I got so much from the first one. I know the first one focused on my focus was trying to find my identity through God as me being freshly in recovery. I'll be a year sober next week.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
So, that was the first boot camp, trying to find my identity. This boot camp, I really didn't know what to look for, what I wanted to look for. I really was just trying to get a mental and spiritual reset from my everyday schedule. But in all reality, I know I needed to let some hurt go, let some pain go. And like I told you off the air, my grandfather passed away March 10th of last year. And the boot camp fell right later on the week of that anniversary. So I wasn't really in the right mind, or I thought I wasn't in the right mind to find what I was looking for. But you guys, all you guys at the boot camp were a big help. Prayers just helped me refocus. And then I got there, and I believe it was the first or second day we had our covenant of silence, the first one. And I just asked God, like, whatever is blocking me from hearing your word or hearing your voice or just getting close to you, getting over my grandfather, remove it. And if you can't remove it, just let the tears fall. And I cried for a good 10 minutes. And I mean, there's still some stuff lingering there because, well, I don't know if it's pride or just me being stubborn, but there's still some stuff there because God this past weekend, God did a lot on me. And like I was telling you earlier, we don't necessarily own the outcome. We just have to own our obedience to God. And I'm trusting that He knows what He's doing. And like this, I mean, I know I'm going to be coming back for more because the curriculum might necessarily be the same, but you take something different each time.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I love you guys, and y'all guys are a big blessing in my life. So I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. It's been amazing to learn about you and to walk with you through some of this, and looking forward to doing a lot more of that.
Appreciate
You know, and it was a little over a year ago, my brother passed away, you know, and so about the year's time, it was really hard. But I just started looking more and more at the grief as just like an onion, like we talked about. You know, it's grief layers. You know, God will peel back a couple layers, but you know, you got more to come.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's good, and just keep focusing on Him. And like you said, He's got it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate
I
that.
appreciate y'all.
So James, it's over to your turn. We can't wait any longer. There's no one else to point at. I'm just saying, it's your turn.
First of all, I would like to say thank y'all for having me. Second time coming to boot camp. I really enjoyed it. But what stood out to me is trust. I just finished my journey at the year program, and as I'm transitioning back out into society, my sister was like, "So where's your mind at right now?" And I was like, "It's all over the place." But as I'm watching my brothers go to college for barber school and other guys in the 90-day side getting jobs back to back, here it is, I'm putting in application. She was like, "Well, the thing is, what God has for them is for them. What He has for you is totally different. So you can't expect the same thing that God's given them that you're going to receive." So as the weeks going by, here it is, focusing on job hunting. And as I'm walking down the street with my resume, it's like, you can't do this no more. You don't have the tools like you was back home. just to reach out to somebody and be like, hey, I just need a kitchen job or something. Now here it is, you up in Winston, don't know nobody. And as I'm walking, something was saying, you can't do this no more. You don't have it. But I stopped and paused. And I told myself, I said, you could do this. You going to do this. And right after that, I just started going by restaurants, dropping off my resumes or whatnot. So here it is. It's just, and this weekend being at boot camp with you guys, it's always a learning experience. And I've been telling the guys, I wish, you know what I'm saying, a lot of you guys can go and experience this, because going there and me doing a giant own trust and God showing me different ways of how just to trust in him. That's all I need, is to trust in him, because at the end of the day, he already know what job that I'm about to get, but he's just trying to see if I'm going to trust him and be patient enough to wait that long, and not just take the first job that come. That's just like today, I had an interview, knowing where the job was located at. And I was like, are you serious about this job right here? And I goes in and talk to him, and off gates, the manager sends someone else out there and tells me, can you come back tomorrow? You're in a meeting. So here it is. How can I trust you? And I'm sitting here looking at the manager. So that's a trust issue right there. And I was like, this is not it. This is not where God wanted me to be at. So and I said to myself, as soon as I walked out the door, we won't be coming back tomorrow. And as I'm sitting here talking to you guys, and I get an email about a job interview tomorrow. So here it is. I got 2 job interviews back to back. It's just by me being able to learn to really trust in him, like I've been on this journey. And here it is. And like my brother David said, he's in the week, a year sober. And May, here it is. The longest I ever been sober is 2 years.
Awesome. Good job.
And just by me trusting him as on this journey, that you could do anything as long as you put God first and just let go and let God do it. That's what I really got out of this. Just trust God. And it's not going to happen on my time. It's going to happen on his. So just because all your brothers around you getting jobs, that don't mean you're not going to get one soon. You just got to be patient and have trust in them. And I learned a lot this weekend from you guys. I enjoyed it. I wish a lot more guys from the mission able to go. It's a learning experience. It really is.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it.
It is, and God's the star of the weekend. It's so cool to watch what he does. And we have fun. It's nice to get out and have fun too. But the whole power of the weekend is just what God chooses to do in each one of our lives. And it's so cool to see everything that he's done throughout that weekend and the impact that he's made, and a lasting impact that he's made. And so I commend you on listening to the Holy Spirit today, saying this isn't a place for you, because the wrong job would be the wrong place, right? And be around the wrong people or whatever that might be. And God knows that, and he's got a special place for you. So I'm excited to see when that happens and what that'll look like for you.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, James. Andy, you have our first clip of the After Hours. You want to tell us a little bit about it? Do you want to play it? What do you want to do?
I'll say a little bit about it. It's from The Kid, and we've done clips from The Kid. I'm not sure we've done these. Maybe we have, but basically The Kid is the story of a 40-year-old man who's posing, who's wounded, and when you see a lot of this in the clips we showed at camp, that won't help you, but basically Russell Durst is kind of messed up, and God interrupts him by sending his 8-year-old self back in his life to kind of heal the wounds that he went through. And we should show that clip typically every boot camp. But this is an indication. When that 40-year-old man meets the 8-year-old kid, you hear the 8-year-old kid and all that was in his heart about his future and what he was going to be. He finds out that that's not really what happened. And we know from another clip that basically he was hurt at 8 years old. That wounding turned him into the bitter man that he had become. But then you hear the 40-year-old Russell and the 8-year-old Rusty talking through this. But once they kind of identify, he says he says kind of an indicator of how his life had turned out. Then it goes on to the healing after the healing process, where the script is flipped, and he kind of isn't that.
You don't want to say the word.
I don't want to say the
Yeah.
word exactly. I don't want to give it away. Let's just listen to the clip, and then
And then you can tell us what you were saying.
exactly.
Yeah.
I have to quit.
You were so solid and
Yeah,
it's like there's a
it was like, oh man, I felt like I was kind of like being in a spy interrogation or something.
Yeah.
I was trying to avoid that, giving the tip. So.
it's almost like a red biplane crashing. I'm
Yeah,
just saying.
yeah.
Anyway, if you watch a movie, you know what that's from. Here we go. Here's the clip.
So what you don't see there is the 70-year-old Russell came back into both of their lives and kind of corrected the scenario, and basically life turned out good. They weren't a loser any longer. They went through the healing process, and it's just a cool clip because we speak a lot about the healing of wound, and a lot of times you feel like, well, once I'm wounded, I'm always wounded. And God can come in and heal that. And the this is a fictional story here, but He truly can give you your heart back. All those desires you had as a kid, you can still receive them. Those dreams that you wanted to happen in your life are still possible if you allow God to come in and heal that wound.
Well, awesome. That's good, Andy. I appreciate that. That's all you guys say about that?
Yeah, I'm sitting there looking at you on the other side of the monitors, and I kind of feel like Home Improvement.
Yeah,
and
I'm Wilson.
on the other
Yeah,
side.
yeah. And Jim's or Harold's there and Kilroy, whatever the little thing that looked over the fence.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's so encouraging to me to see that not only are the wounds healed and he's restored back to the things that he really wanted to do,
Right.
but then one of the neat things of that clip that you can't play everything is he's saying how much he appreciates the 40-year-old Russell.
Yes.
And he goes, it's particularly good to see you again.
I hated having to cut that out, but you're right.
It's particularly good to see you again because that's his childlike heart.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And that childlike heart that has a blast with that dog and has a blast thinking about being a pilot and all those things, that's the beauty of him not becoming a loser is he actually gets back.
That's right.
A little rusty.
Yeah.
Good, Grant.
One of my favorite memories of boot camp was a man that wanted to regain his past faith and get a lot closer to Jesus. There was one night, next morning, early morning, they were baptizing in the lake.
Yep.
He came running down the hill, dove in the lake.
It's freezing cold.
Yeah, and it was not warm. Yeah, it was not warm at that particular boot camp. Yeah, it's agreed. Yeah, we didn't have any baptisms at this particular camp this last time, but we have had them in the past. And when you do them in early spring and late November, the water's not typically the warmest.
He had no complaints.
No. It took us a while to warm up, but yeah, it was good. And it was, our hearts were warm the whole time. The extremities, not as much. But well, I guess we get back down to my clip. My clip is from the movie Amadeus, and most people have not seen that, which is okay. This is the only clip I think I've actually seen from the movie Amadeus. I may have watched it one time, a long time ago. But
There's the one with the chocolates.
Oh yeah. It was right before this part. Yeah. But on this particular clip, what we have going on, I was doing the spiritual warfare talk. And so on the spiritual warfare talk, I decided to use this clip because what it is you have Solari, I think his name is, and he's the court person or the king's person who's to put music together, right? He's I don't know what they called him, when a musical director or whatever, but there was a title. You know what it was, Andy?
Ugly old guy.
Yeah, ugly old guy, composer. It was somewhere in that range, between those two.
Ish.
But so Mozart comes up, Amadeus Mozart, and he is just flawless in his work. In a previous scene, he talks about looking at his work, and there's not even a pencil mark where he's erased anything. That everything just kind of comes from him, it just flows from his heart. And so he gets this jealousy, this incredible jealousy, and it really looks like the enemy, because Satan, when you look back in Revelation 12, it talks about him being cast down. But the description of Satan when he was Lucifer, referred to as that, he was the most beautiful angel there was, right? He's adored at all these jewelry and all these things and has nothing to, look at other angels, but that wasn't good enough for him. He wanted God's position, right? And he had a distaste for God and wanted to overthrow God and got cast down, right? But this jealous root. And so because he couldn't defeat God, that's why Satan comes after us so strongly. And so I want to play this clip because it echoes the way the enemy looks at each one of us. And you'll hear something towards the end. It's a crackling sound. It's a fire, roaring fire. And he throws a crucifix cross into the fire as he's talking to God. He's having this conversation with God. That pretty much sums up how the enemy looks at us. And keep in mind, angels are powerful beings, but they weren't, as far as we know, created in the image of God, right? We're created in the image of God. The people that don't have the power the angels do, the lowly human, right? And so that really explains why the enemy hates us so much. He doesn't really care about me. He doesn't care about you, Garrett. He just cares about hurting God, and the way he hurts God's heart is to hurt his children. Right. And so that's a clip that I used. And during that talk, I got a couple things I want to talk about on that talk. But during that talk, I experienced a lot of warfare. I know this talk really pretty well. I've done it. It's really only one major bullet point. You talk about agreements, and honestly, I own some of this because I went into it too lightly. Yeah, I prayed before I went in and I prepared for it, but I didn't prepare as if I was talking about the enemy's home turf. Right. And so during the talk, every time I would say something, I would hear an exterior voice, not from the crowd, but an exterior voice kind of whispering in my ear, "You already said that." Or "Why'd you say that again?" Or "What's going on here?" And I was just getting confused, to the point where I had to stop and actually kind of pray some of that stuff off of me in the middle of the talk. And it really did help me to be able to continue. Now, the talk was what the talk was. The power of that particular talk was I didn't have a responder going into the weekend. Sometimes I have responders. And I really hadn't thought of who I wanted to respond, and it just hadn't become clear to me on it. And so when I got there, I saw Mike, Big Mike, friend of the show. He's helped us with team stuff all the time and been on the radio before. And I said, hey, Mike, would you respond to the warfare talk? And initially, Mike said, yes, I'll do it. And I said, well, pray about what God wants you to talk about. And I had something in mind that I wanted him to talk about, but that's between him and God. Right. And so he came back the next day, said, yeah, I'll definitely talk, but I want to talk about this topic. And it wasn't really what I had hoped he would talk for. But I said, okay, that's fine. As long as that's what God told you to do, go ahead and talk about that. He said, okay. Well, then the next day he came in, and it's the day we're going to do that talk. He came in and he said, or later that day, he came in and said, hey, on my quiet time, God told me to talk about this other topic. And it was exactly what I'd hoped he would talk about. And when he did, it moved everybody in that building. There were guys in there that he didn't know that had the same similar story, or knew people of a similar story, or knew people that may be going into that story, or whatever the case may be. But there was people moved through his testimony of what God's done in his life. And it's such an amazing thing to sit and watch and see those guys, and what you guys don't get to see, and we don't share publicly, is, we get to read the prayer cards and pray over them. And just really how many people were touched by what God had done in Mike's life and given them hope that they might not be in the exact same situation, but, they're in similar type of situation, right? Either emotionally, spiritually, financially, whatever that might be, that hope that, God is still there, even though I can't see him at the moment, right? He is there working, and there will be an outcome down the road, right? It's not done yet. It's not finished yet, because a lot of the time along the way, we give up hope way too early and not realizing or not remembering God's still working in the midst of it. But that's what I have to say about that. Anyway, we got about a little over half a minute left. Does anyone else want to add anything or anything come to mind you want to talk about? Go ahead, David.
I'll tell you my least favorite part of the camp was that tilt table. Yeah, it's kind of hard for a 290-pound man to sit still on a rotating table.
Yeah. And when it crashes down
Yes.
hard.
Well, I was sitting there looking at me like I'm doing something wrong. I was like, I can't. It's gravity, man. It's gravity.
Yeah, well, I kept listening, and I'd hear, oh, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm glad I'm not in there. My back had been killing me, and I'm like, yeah, I can't imagine that.
It was all blessing, man.
But
Go ahead,
think
James.
about trying to stand up and you surfing and the wind blowing, your calf muscles get to shaking.
Oh yeah, because if you moved at all, that thing was going to come down. I didn't participate, but I just kind of watched it, and it was enough just watching it. Rodney?
It was just funny. I'm sitting there relaxing. I'm like, oh, we got this thing leveled off. It's been, a little bit of time. And next thing I see, somebody's talking. I'm like, gosh, I wish they'd just be still, because you're going to shake this thing. We're going to lose this. Then they keep talking and talking. I'm like, no. And finally, I said something, because I'm like, guys aren't going to quiet. We're going to lose this thing, and we're going to move. And it's just, I get all wrapped up in what was going on instead of just thinking about where are they at with their heart.
Thank you, Rodney. Garrett, tell us one more time about the weekend event. Where would they find out about it?
FoothillsChristianChurch.com. Our homepage has the event on there, and you can find us on Facebook or Instagram. So come to our Facebook page, Foothills Christian Church in Louisville, North Carolina. So
Well, thank you.
love to have you.
Thanks for being on the show with us. Go to masculinejourney.org. We will have the fall boot camp coming up. It is the weekend before Thanksgiving, so mark your calendars now. We'll talk to you later. Enjoy your week.